Здравствуйте, дамы и господа. Я очень рада, что мы сейчас в нашей зеленой гостиной во второй раз в моей жизни сидим с Дэвидом Холбергом. Это редко бывает. Обычно у нас один сюжет, и даже если он бьется на два, то, как правило, это один разговор. А мы встречаемся с Дэвидом. Между нашими двумя встречами прошло несколько лет, очень важных лет. David, I'm saying that here we are meeting again in the green room, and it's very rare that I do a second interview in the green room, and usually when we have two interviews, I take them in one run, and then we just cut it. And here, I meet you second time in this green room, and several years went in between. And those years was like so important in a sense.
A lifetime.
And tragic in a sense.
Yes.
Interesting years. But I heard in one of your interviews that you're now looking forward. You want to only do an experience thing you didn't try before. You want to move forward. Yet, I checked our previous interview. You was here dancing Onegin. You're now here dancing Onegin. What does it mean to you now to be back to Bolshoi, to do Onegin here again?
Well, there's two parts to your question. The first part is being back at Bolshoi. And this is more meaningful to me than the ballet that I dance, because there was a lot of time that passed, 4.5 years, which during that 4.5 years, of course, I went through so much. But coming back to Moscow and coming back to Bolshoi Theater, I've realized how much of a home I made here and how close I became to the people of Bolshoi Theater, from everywhere to Mr. Urin and you, to the women helping me with my makeup and hair, everybody. And it's so good to be back. It feels so comfortable to be back. But as well, I keep saying this to my friends in text message, back to the United States. My heart is so full. My heart feels so full being back here. And it's because it feels like home, but also it feels artistically so enriching and fulfilling and important. So it's really such a gift that life has given me to come back here. And as well, Onegin. Onegin is a ballet that I danced elsewhere as well, but it's really the ballet that I got to know very, very well in Moscow. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that Onegin is so important to Russian culture. But I felt the importance of this ballet to Russian audiences and to the dancers that portray this story. So to come back, not in a new work, not in something unknown, but to something deeply meaningful to myself and deeply meaningful to Russian audiences, I think is the perfect return, really, because of how important it is to everyone that experiences it.
For me, you was the most amazing Onegin I ever saw. You was like this aloof and maybe arrogant, but demonic in a sense that you were very attracting man coming to the stage. But for example, this 4.5 years of your personal experience, did it also change your Onegin? Is he comes back differently now that he used to come before?
He absolutely is different. He's different in a way because I feel I've lived so much in these 4.5 years. I've been so low. I've climbed up so slowly from the bottom of life to come back as the artist now that I am. And the only thing that I tell myself when I'm about to dance Onegin or even rehearse Onegin is to just be honest. Don't try and layer it with what you've experienced. It will already be layered with what you experience. And I think the experiences of life, of any artist, you obviously bring to the stage, but you don't have to try to bring those experiences to the stage. You just have to be on the stage and experiencing deeply what Onegin is going through. or whatever role that you're portraying as a dancer or as an artist.
One of the best moments in your book for me was the description of you and Natasha on stage. I think for everybody, when I was reading through these pages of Romeo and Juliet, I think I left this moment through with you, and I think audience felt what you felt on stage. So my question is, when you were rehearsing with Natasha, did you already project that something of that kind will happen on stage, or it was a total surprise when it came on stage that way?
It was a total surprise. Again, something that you can't plan and something that you can't expect. We had danced Romeo once before, and this was deeply meaningful because it was Natasha's premiere as Juliet. And she was coached by Alessandra Ferri, who was the Juliet of her generation, and continually now as well. And so that was special, but this other Romeo and Juliet that we had already experienced the ballet itself together, we then went into the performance like normal, nervous, excited, and then it's like everything aligned. And what happened was, and I rarely experience this, in fact, on stage, I stopped being aware of the audience. I stopped being aware that I was in performance, that I was putting on a performance. And the only thing that I was aware of was this person in front of me and how much I had fallen in love with this person. And when I say that we fell in love, we really fell in love. And we were so haunted by it for so long after. And Natasha and I are very close friends. We're not lovers. We go on in our personal lives separately. But what we have experienced on stage, especially during Romeo and Juliet, has been love. We are convinced it was this. And there were thousands of people watching it, which is such a surprise, They became voyeurs, which I think is so important in a story like that.
I envy them for being there, but you describe it very well in your book, so at least they could have some glimpse of this experience. Meeting you before, when I first met you here in Bolshoi, you were already a great star, world star. And speaking to you previous time and knowing you, you always follow this vocation, what is the right English word, this kind of call, which you had from your childhood to dance, to be a ballet dancer. And on the top of your career, you had this injury, which does it feel like really something unfair, because you really followed up your life path. So why, on the top, did you ever ask this kind of question to yourself or not?
I didn't ask myself why, and I never said to myself that I didn't deserve this. Because I feel like in life, every experience happens because this is your plan in life. This is your path in life. And although what happened to me was so hard to go through personally, and I think it was hard to go through for not just me, but for audiences and for the directors of companies trying to make plans for performances, all of this. But I didn't ask, why did this happen to me? Why me? I asked, how did this happen to me? How did I get here? And I've come up with some very good reasons how I got there, which I explain in the book. And I got there because I didn't respect the instrument that I was given. I can only learn lessons from my own experiences in life, and I really try and learn from these experiences. Other than blaming other people or saying I didn't deserve this, whatever. No, you can always learn a lesson from what you go through. And for me, I didn't respect my instrument. I didn't balance my life. I went too fast. I didn't say no to offers and experiences. And the faster it got, the harder it was to say no.
Mm-hmm.
When l'Opéra de Paris calls you to do Sleeping Beauty, it's hard to say, I can't do this is too much. When Scala calls, when Bolshoi Theatre wants to plan performances with you. These were experiences that life was giving me.
Right.
That was just, the taste was too good. Вот это очень вкусно. But then I learned the hard way. And I describe it like I was on the cliff. And it's like, almost like the cliff was pulled back, and I was, and there was nowhere to go but down, and that's what happened.
And for my mind, the very tough thing was that first of all, was like no hope at a certain moment, because it was moving and moving forward and no end. I remember when we were sitting, you and Sergei Filin, discussing what will you be planned for the upcoming in Bolshoi, and then in autumn you didn't come, and then we all thought, but yes, okay, now in autumn he's not coming, but he will come maybe in winter, or if not in winter, he will come in March, and then it gets longer, and there is a certain moment when then you don't know, he comes back or he will not come back. And that's us, outsiders. But how to deal with this from your inner self? How to find at that moment hope?
Yeah.
Or, I don't know.
Well, I started with hope. I started with positivity. I had a plan. I had surgery. I didn't want to waste time. I didn't, I was like, I will get back to this. I will do this. I will do my rehabilitation well. Then time kept slipping away, and I wasn't making any progress. And my foot wasn't getting any better. It wasn't looking any better visually.
Mm-hmm.
It was red and swollen after my surgery, consistently. And I had it in my gut feeling that something was wrong. But I was trying to ignore it because I just was, I have this very deep focus when I am focused on something. And I just was like, no, keep going. And a year later, after the surgery, I realized that the surgery was messed up, had been messed up. And I had to fix what they did with another surgery.
Yeah, but here I read that coming to this second surgery, you came without any pain, but leaving, you was like an invalid in a sense.
Yes. And that's what shocked me the most. You walk into a hospital, walking in, you walk out and you have this anesthesia, so you're blacked out, and then you wake up, and you're like, wait, I can't walk, But,
scary.
Yeah, scary, but it was all part of the plan, and I respect the patience that people had, the directors and the public especially, that just waited when I didn't have an answer for anybody. Didn't have an answer for myself, nor having an answer for anyone else.
And then, thanks God, you find this great team in Australia where you went. But I also understood Australia was like a healing place from all senses. This 14 months you spent there without, I understood, maybe your American telephone, emails, just like went in some, I don't know, hide place to heal up yourself.
Yes.
What did this 14 months did to yourself, to your self-recognition, or self-understanding?
Well, I went to Australia with, in English we say, last-ditch effort, which means this is it. This is the last time I will try. And I was so broken. I mean, you can see these photos in my book. I shaved my head and bought a one-way ticket and told everyone on social media and everything that I was taking care of something. I don't know when I'll be back. And I got to Australia so broken and didn't know how long it would take. And so physically I started to rehab with this team, but mentally and personally I had to deal with my own darkness that had built up over a year. And that was done, and as I know now, that's how I deal with hard situations, completely alone. I had to do this alone. I didn't want nor need nor have someone next to me to help me through this. I had to do this in solitude. And it took as long as it took, but it made me realize the strength I have inside me and the perseverance I have inside me. And this experience in Australia wasn't the first time that I had to put myself to this test. You know, I moved to Moscow with no friends. You were maybe my first friend.
But then Vika came also.
But then, yeah, Vika Gazinskaya and Natasha Trutnikova and my dear, dear friends in Moscow. But
before reading your book, I didn't realize it. Yes,
No.
we were socializing and smiling, but I didn't know how lonely you've been in Moscow. And in Paris also. Right?
yeah, and you know, I went to the Paris Opera School and I had no friends. More people not liking me than liking
Quite
me.
a hostile
Yes.
atmosphere.
And then Moscow, and then Australia. So I knew these experiences well almost. And it's almost as if, you know, I asked myself a lot of these kinds of questions in Australia. Do you like these situations? Do you like suffering and risking and solitude and hardship and challenges? And the answer is yes. This is what, I wouldn't say I want to go through the experience I went through again in Australia, but Paris, and when I first arrived in Moscow, as lonely and as hard and as much pressure as I was under, I loved it, because that to me is what an artist craves, is that risk and that challenge and the pressure. And I write about this as well in the book, that when I was away from the stage for so long, 2.5 years, what I missed wasn't the spotlight, it wasn't the performance, it wasn't the applause, it wasn't even the repertoire. I missed the repertoire, but it wasn't the main thing. The main thing that I missed was the stress and the pressure and the expectation of people around me. Because that, once you experience that, you crave it more.
Interesting. The life of dancer, of every dancer, is short, because 20 years, 25 years, and then it's gone. So here you had this break for 2.5 years, and you have now different approach. You said, I did too much, I was too hungry, I was taking everything, it was so delicious. How to manage it between this limited time which is given to us, our inner hunger to do new things, and our body abilities to digest it all? Where is the limit? How to find the balance?
It's very hard to find the balance. And it's a constant test to know when is too much and to know when is too little, and you sort of get a little bit bored. But now, at my age, at the point in my career, I gain more, my hunger is more satiated when I put more time into what I'm doing than less time into what I'm doing. You know, it's like having a fabulous meal that, with something that's been braised for 8 hours, then going and having, you know, karovka or batonchik. Although I love karovka and batonchik, you can't always eat these candies that last a second. You have to have meals that are meaningful, and that to me is what I get satisfaction out of now, is coming to a company, experiencing a work, rehearsing with the company, getting to know who I'm dancing with, not just my partner, but everybody. It's more meaningful, and it's better for my body than flying in and flying out. I don't enjoy this flying in and flying out anymore.
I stopped to like gala concerts. It's something difficult for me to
I
digest.
couldn't agree with you more, you know. I mean, Don Quixote is one of the staples of our repertoire, but
Having only this grandpa at the end. Yes, David, being such a, how to say, lonely person is not true word, but full of yourself in the sense that you can live alone. You need this loneliness. How much of outside world you let into your life? I don't know. If you're watching news, if you...
Good question. Well, I'm a very curious person. And so I learn a lot from people around me and from life, you know, other forms of art and fashion and, you know, everything. But there is a part of me, I agree, that like enjoys solitude and I feel comfortable in solitude. And I think that's why, you know, I did move to Moscow not knowing anyone, and I did go to Australia by myself. And it's something that now I'm conscious of. It's not, before I was unconscious of it. I just did what I did, and I didn't question that I was alone. I just did it. It's not that I thought, oh, I like to be alone. But now, I'm very sort of realistic to this. And to be honest, it scares me a little bit. Because, you know, I'm 36 years old, and I think, you know, time is marching on, and I'm not shy about being this age, and I'm not ignorant towards this age. And I think, how long will this last? Will this last my lifetime? Because you do need a balance, and one always needs love, and one needs companionship and people around them. So I'm aware that it can be a little bit dangerous, and my parents, especially, I know, worry about me if they're watching this interview. You know, about me being alone. But I feel like that's a sign of an artist as well. Sometimes it's you find your outlet in your medium, and you're most comfortable in that outlet, and then the rest is sometimes internalized.
I'm thinking about modern art, which you like so much, and the other day you told me that, for example, Kulhas is one of the architects whose work you like. Yet classical dance, it's quite a traditional form of ballet. For yourself, how would you like, with whom of today choreographers you would like to work? This one question. The second question is, what do you like about modern art? What touches you in the art, in the nowadays art, not in the old masters?
Well, there's one of the masters is William Forsythe. And he, you know, in the 80s, he created these ballets that just still create such a pulse in the ballet world. But he, you know, has made this resurgence in classical ballet with this beautiful Blake works at Paris Opera. And I have never seen it live, but I've seen as much video as I can. And he has such an understanding of pushing the classical technique to its limits and making dancers shine in the way that they should shine. They're not daunted by steps. They're highlighted by steps. It's so needed in the ballet world. So often as everyone so bogged down by technically how we dance and how we didn't get a pirouette, we didn't get a jump. And it's not about this. And he makes it about the pure joy of watching dance and the pure joy of dancing. Another one that I just am dying to work with is Anna Theresa de Kersmacher. Again, she's very reserved and serious as a person. I don't know her, but this is what I see. But her work is so studious, and it's so important. You know, when dancers dance it, they take such an importance in the movement that they're executing. And then the list goes on and on. You know, there's so many that I haven't been afforded the opportunity, which I've pursued some, I haven't pursued others, and some aren't interested, some are sort of interested. You know, it's a constant conversation in making something like this work.
With someone like Forsyth, it would be a great pleasure just to work in the studio, because for him,
Absolutely.
all the movements and dance has such a deep meaning. So just to be by his side in the studio, I think would
Absolutely.
be already interesting. What do you enjoy in the contemporary art? Because I know you like contemporary art as well, and we spoke the other day about contemporary architecture and about Koolhaas, and you said you love him. What is it that touches you?
I think what touches me is the kind of self-definition of ideas, individual interpretation of what painting means to people as an artist. You know, there are some of the most famous artists working today that I love, Gerhard Richter and Candida Hofer, who's a photographer, and but there are some that are so morbid and dark that move me in such a different way. You know, I don't look at art to be beautiful. I look at art to challenge and to move me, even if it's uncomfortable. And that goes into architecture. You know, when you see a building that just absolutely takes your breath away, the way it's constructed, even in the details. You know, you go into the building, and the details of how it's constructed is so well thought out. It becomes harmonious, even if it's not meant to be sort of technically harmonious, as in Roman architecture or Greek architecture. And that's what moves me as well, you know, in dancers and visual artists and architects, is when people find their own original voice. And people use original a lot, you know, but I do feel that in the dance world, there are very few original voices right now. And there are beautiful dancers, because technique nowadays is even better than it was 20 years ago and 40 years ago. But when a dancer really has something to say that goes beyond a développé or beyond a beautiful foot, that to me is what's so important about this art form. And it's so important about art in general when you see a visual artist, a designer, clothing designer, anything, you know.
You know, David, you always had something to tell to me personally. I always respond to you. I remember all of your performances in Bolshoi, and yesterday, as I said, even on dress rehearsal of Onegin, you moved me to tears, because the way you ran into Tatiana's room, already sort of such a fresh emotion, such a deep meaning, and such a sense of true human emotions again. Yes, really emotions which you felt toward this Tatiana on stage captured me absolutely. But when I got this book, which was given to me when you were not yet in Russia, I was doubtful. I thought, well, David wrote a book. Of course, he was bored. He wrote a book. He's only 36-year-old. What actually could he write already? I read so many memories in the ballet field and everywhere. I love memories. And yet, this is frankly, one of the best book I ever read, especially in this genre of memoir, because on one hand, it's so true, it's so emotional. On the other hand, the language is beautiful, just the language. You read through very easily, and your ability, which is not always goes that way, but your ability to create character on stage. In this book, you made my imagination to go with you. I was absolutely into this book. All my other life was somewhere else. When I was reading it, I was in there. So the question is, how you decide to write it? Was it a conscious decision? Did you have a plan? You knew, like, I will describe my family, Mr. Han, how I did this, and that, and I will end at that point. Or how was it moving on?
It was an enormous process. You know, I started writing the book when I was here at Bolshoi, and I was in the height of my I don't know, career, performing career, and all this that came with it. So the book was very, very different when I started, and it was written at times with a lot of ego. And I became very aware of this when I was continually writing the book while I was injured. And the message of the book, I think, would have been very different had I not gone through what I went through. And I feel like the message became so clear.
Frankly, your injury gave the whole dramaturgy to this book, in a sense, if you can describe it in these forms.
Because it became so clear to me that this was the message I had to tell. And people say to me, you know, at times, how did you choose to be so honest in the book?
That's the question. How you can be so honest on stage also.
It's what I had to do. It wasn't a question. It wasn't a fork in the road. It wasn't, well, do I tell people this or do I not? I had to tell people what I went through. And what I went through is what I went through. It wasn't like, oh, in my downtime, for example, in my downtime in Australia, I spent a lot of time alone. No. I spent a lot of time in a park, alone, drinking a six-pack of beer by myself on a park bench. People thought I was that crazy drunk in the park. I would do that on Friday nights until the sun went down. I became this person. And I had to tell people that, yes, I was taking bows at Bolshoi Theater, and after performances with dancing with Svetlana Zakharova, who's the greatest ballerina of this generation. But then, a year later, I was sitting in a park alone, drinking beer, getting drunk, because I had lost total control of my life. But the beautiful part of that story, for me, is that I made the choice to come back to life. I didn't let it beat me. Had I not come back and ever danced again, fine. Like, this was my path. But I was given this gift again. And here we are having a second interview, which you rarely do, which I'm so touched.
and again in Warsaw.
And to see Svetlana again, you know, to see my friends here again. It's not something that I deserve. You know, I don't. This is what you deserved. You deserve to be here. No, it's a gift to be here. It's such a gift, and it's a gift that Sergei Filin gave me, but it's a gift that I accepted, and it's so deeply meaningful to have this experience again. I can't describe it like that, you know, more like that. It's such a special moment for me personally.
Yet this book has been dedicated to your parents and to Mr. Han. Only these two dedications in the beginning. Well, already two. Why those people so important? Or why book is dedicated to them?
Well, first, my parents, as unknown of a path as it was to them, you know, ballet culture isn't like ballet culture in Russia, in America. They never once questioned why I would do this. They never once said, you can't make a career out of this. You can't, this isn't your calling. you know, the boys are playing baseball. And the more they saw this desire for me to live this life, the more they tried to make the right choices to feed this desire. And that meant actually not sending me off to a school, keeping me at home and letting me have a normal childhood. And then when it's time, sending me off to Paris, letting me fly. But as well, they always supported me in everything, in my personal life. They, you know, when I came out to them, they accepted me for who I was. They didn't discourage me ever in anything. They always supported me. And Mr. Hahn gave me my wings. And he spent really only 4 years when you think about it, but these 4 years he devoted to me. And he taught me. I was this sloppy noodle, you know, I was an overcooked noodle of a boy. I was 14 years old and didn't know anything. I didn't even know what a good coup de pied was, what a good développé looked like. I didn't know if I was any good. But he shaped me. You know, he was like an army sergeant. He shaped me, he drilled me well late into the night. And he devoted his heart to me, his guidance, and never asked for anything back, really. But he instilled such work in me, and discipline, and perseverance, that I have to do this myself, that I carry with now until, you know, I'm a grown man. And so these two dedications are people that, in my formative years, guided me when I didn't know one foot, you know, my right foot from my left foot.
Well, only thing what I can say now is that you have to run to your studio because you have rehearsal, and I have to let you go. And on the other hand, I'm very sad about it because you are kind of a person with whom I would like to have a series of green rules, because any topic we touch, you always speak from your heart and you always have something, your own way to feel and to describe it. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Katya. Thank you so much.